People tell me all the time whenever I preach, because I preach with a very, I'm very passionate when I preach. When I talk about Jesus ever, I'm just very, we had classes of 12 people, and I was going after it like I'm in a stadium of 1 million. That's just how I am. And the Lord actually told me last week, he said, because the call on my life, whenever he grabbed hold of me, he said, I'm going to send you to the masses to wake up the church. And I immediately saw stadiums. My dad got to preach in stadiums, so I inherit the blessing. And the Lord said to me, he said, Brandon, the reason why you preach and talk to small groups the way that you do is because what I have on your heart is stadiums, and you're preparing now for what I have for you then. If you prepare now for what he has for you then, you're signing yourself up for the blessing and breakthrough for then. Yes. Right? So I have this passion when I speak, and there are times when I talk to people and they come to me and they're like, dude, you need to just chill out. I can't chill out. I'm on fire. The reason why people tell you to chill out whenever you're on fire is because what you're actually doing is exposing their ice. You're calling out what shouldn't belong in them, and it makes them uncomfortable. There's a reason why the fire boys went through the fire and weren't even touched, weren't even singed. They were already on fire. And the only thing they were doing was making Nebuchadnezzar uncomfortable because he was ice cold. When somebody is cold and you're on fire, you expose the cold and you start melting away their ice and you start bringing them into the goodness who is God, and then they get set on fire too. But whenever we compromise, we step 1 foot in the cold and we try to keep 1 foot in the hot, and what happens is you get pneumonia. And whenever you have pneumonia, you can't do anything. All the devil wants you to do is look like him. All the devil's one job, the only thing he's trying to do is trying to recreate his image in you. And here's the thing about the devil is ice cold, which is crazy because he lives in a lake of fire. But it's a forever reminder that you will never have me again. I'm going to put you into a lake of fire where you never get satisfied, where the cold that you have in your heart never gets burned up with the reality of who I am for eternity. It was a reminder. And the gnashing of teeth. Here's what I think. I believe, now this is just me, this is not written in Scripture. This is just the way my mind works because I'm weird. I think that the reason why the gnashing of teeth, why the uncomfort, why the screaming and the pain and the agony of hell, which is a real place, and the never being able to be satisfied, I think the reason that is, and why they're in the lake of fire, is because God said, God is saying, I've intended for that fire to be what was in your heart this whole time, and you've never, ever grabbed it, and now you have to be in the midst of it and never get it. And I think that's why people are in pain, because the reality of, I was this close and I never grabbed it. That's just me. That's just something I see in my brain. The reality that we have this invitation to be so hand in hand with God and that we would spit at it. So hard, man. And what makes it even worse is that for some people, they don't even know. They don't even know that they're doing it. For some people, they're living this life of thinking that they're doing the right things, but they're just straddling a fence of hot and cold, and that just makes God want to vomit. And the reason that we have that is because we've allowed the church to have so many opinions that now we step in and we say, well, I'm going to do things my way. I'm not going to do things the devil's way, but I'm not going to go all the way to this side. I'm going to be lukewarm. And then I start compromising and I start living a life of hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is a super, super dangerous thing. Jesus made it very, very clear not to live in hypocrisy. He said things like, you strain a gnat to swallow a camel. He says things like, we will walk over your graves and not even know that we're walking over you. He says things like, you're whitewashed tombs. He said these analogies of people who lived in hypocrisy. He went to the Pharisees in the book of John. You can read this, John chapter 5. He goes to the Pharisees and he says, you study the scriptures and you do all the right stuff. You think that you know it. You think you have it memorized. But the ones they point to is standing in front of you. You didn't even recognize who I am. You say all this stuff and you do all this stuff, but you don't even know the one of which you study. And you're taking people away from me by trying to do the law. I am going to fulfill the law. He says, what's worse? What's worse? That I healed a man in the name of our Father? That I actually put into action what you talk about doing? What's worse, the fact that I did it or the fact that you talk about and do nothing with it? Jesus was very persistent on this thing of hypocrisy. If you're going to say it, you better do it. Don't just be hearers, be doers. If you do it without love, without me, then you're not really doing it anyway. It all revolves around me. If you want to live with me, you've got to stop living in hypocrisy and start living in love. The fires of first love must consume you to where everywhere you go, I come out. The fires of first love have to be so hot that everyone you touch gets set on fire with me. The fires of first love have to be so apparent in your life that just because you walked by somebody in a wheelchair, your shadow touched them and they got set free. The fires of first love is where we see the things of God that we've never dreamed of.